On the morning of my 20th birthday, I thought I'd get a hug, maybe a cheap cake, a laugh, something. Instead, my mom looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Time to man up and move out." No warning, no emotion. Just like that, I went from son to stranger. But what I didn't know, standing there with my life in trash bags and rain soaking through my shoes, was that this wasn't just about growing up. It was about being erased. Because behind that door was a betrayal I never saw coming. No cake, no hugs, no smiles. Just her standing at the kitchen table like a soldier waiting to deliver bad news. I just rubbed the sleep out of my eyes and stumbled in, expecting maybe a happy birthday, or at least a good morning. Instead, my mom took a sip of her coffee, gave me this blank look, and said, "You're 20 now. It's time to man up and move out." Just like that. Every part of me froze. I blinked at her for a second, trying to figure out if it was some kind of twisted joke. She'd always had a weird sense of humor when she was in one of her stressed out moods. But nope, she was deadly serious. I even laughed a little, nervously. "Wait, you're joking, right?" I asked. Her lips barely moved. "Do I look like I'm joking?" My stomach dropped. It was like the floor disappeared under me. Half awake, half pissed, half shattered. I couldn't even process what was happening. My actual birthday. And the first words out of her mouth were basically, "Get out. No, I love you. No, I'm proud of the man you're becoming." Just that cold grin Kyle, the guy she married after my dad passed, always wore when I got told off. Something about that morning felt off. Like it had been rehearsed. Like she was waiting for my birthday to push this exact button. I wanted to scream, ask why, ask what the hell I did wrong, but I was too stunned to speak. All I could think was, she really means this. I looked around the room, at the family photos on the wall, the couch where I used to cuddle with her during storms, the kitchen counter where Dad made pancakes on Sundays. None of it felt like mine anymore. The more I stood there in that kitchen, stunned and silent, the more it started to click. This wasn't just a last-minute decision. This had been planned. It felt rehearsed, calculated. I could see it in her face, in the way she avoided eye contact. She wasn't unsure or torn about it. She'd already made peace with it. And the first person who came to mind wasn't even her. It was Kyle, the man she'd married 1 year after my dad died. I never liked the guy. He always gave me these looks like I was some unwanted stray dog, something he had to tolerate but couldn't wait to be rid of. From day one, he walked into our house like he owned it, like he was doing us some big favor by being there. Never once felt like a dad. Never even tried. The thing is, I used to believe that my mom loved me, like truly, deeply loved me. We were close when my dad was alive. She used to take me to baseball practice, bake cookies for no reason, sing softly to help me sleep when I had nightmares. That all changed after Dad passed. She stopped doing all that. She got colder, more distant. And then came Kyle. Tall, smug, and always whispering things behind closed doors. I'd catch snatches of it. Words like discipline, too soft, needs to learn responsibility. He didn't care about me. I was just a nuisance to him. And now that I was older, not a grieving little boy anymore, I guess I was disposable. That morning, I realized this wasn't about maturity or teaching me a life lesson. She hadn't kicked me out to make me stronger. She kicked me out because he wanted me gone. And she chose him over me. That realization split me in half. I walked around the block trying to clear my head, hoping maybe she'd come to her senses by the time I got back. Maybe even realize how cruel what she said was, call me inside, laugh it off, say she didn't mean it. But when I turned the corner and saw what was waiting, that hope vanished. 2 black trash bags, sitting right there on the porch like worthless roadkill. My life, or what was left of it, all jammed inside garbage bags. My clothes, crumpled. Some notebooks from school. A deodorant stick and my toothbrush tossed in like afterthoughts. I pulled them open in a panic. I saw my old wrestling medals from high school. They were bent, no box to protect them. One of them was actually cracked. I found my childhood photo album, soaked, pages sticking together because it had started to drizzle while I was gone. Then I noticed something missing. My PS4. The one thing of value I had. I went to the door and knocked like I was trying to break it down. Kyle opened it. Not Mom. Kyle. He smirked, leaned against the frame like this was just some little power trip for him. "You've got your stuff? What else do you need?" he said. I pushed his arm and shouted, "Where's my PS4? He didn't even flinch, just shrugged and said, "Oh, that thing. We donated it. Figured you needed a little motivation." Motivation? That was my only way to escape when life got heavy, and they just gave it away like it meant nothing to anyone. I demanded to speak to my mom. She finally came to the door, eyes empty. No sadness, no guilt, just washed out silence. "You'll thank me one day," she said quietly. And then Kyle slammed the door. That was it. I was out. Really out. I just stood on the front lawn for a while, feeling the rain soak through my hoodie, watching their porch light flicker behind the closed door like it was laughing at me. There was no way I could stay there, not with Kyle probably pacing around inside, proud of what he'd done. So I picked up my wet trash bags and walked. No clue where to go. No plan. Just me, the sound of cars hissing past in the rain, and this knot of humiliation choking me. I texted the only person I trusted at that point. Darren, my best friend since middle school. When I told him what happened, he didn't even ask questions. Just sent me a pin and said, Come over, bro, seriously. He didn't have much. He was sharing a small house with 2 other guys, all college students, broke as hell. But he cleared a spot for me in the garage. There was an old recliner in there, duct-taped armrest, springs messed up. But I'd never been so grateful for anything. It was cold, smelled faintly of motor oil, and half the outlets didn't work. But it was safe. That night, as I lay back staring at the cracked ceiling above me, I replayed everything. Her voice, Kyle's smug grin, the weight of those soaked trash bags. It all sat in my chest like bricks. I couldn't sleep. I felt so many things, heartbroken, pissed, ashamed, like I was some pathetic loser that even his own mother didn't want. And yet, in one tiny pocket of my mind, something else whispered, asterisk, maybe this is rock bottom. Maybe the only direction now is up, asterisk, but right then, rock bottom didn't feel like a lesson. It just felt like the loneliest place in the world. After a couple weeks of couch surfing Darren's garage, something inside me just cracked. I don't know what triggered it exactly. Maybe it was the 3rd job rejection email that day, or the way one of his roommates rolled his eyes when he saw me still there. Or maybe it was just the way I had to pretend like I was fine when I couldn't even find clean socks anymore. Whatever it was, around 2 a.m. that night, I just snapped. I couldn't sit on that busted recliner for another second. I grabbed my hoodie, quietly slipped out the side door, and just started walking. No destination. No thoughts. Just this pressure building in my chest like I was going to explode. The streets were dead. Cold winds slicing through my jacket. Every step felt heavier than the last. Eventually, I ended up behind the old diner my mom used to take me to when I was a kid, especially after a tough day at school. It used to be our thing. She'd get coffee, and I'd get fries and a vanilla shake, and we'd sit in the booth and talk about life. And now? Now I was curled up behind that same building, sitting against the damp brick wall, trying not to let the sobs break too loud from my throat because I didn't want to scare anyone or even be seen. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. And for a split second, a dark, terrifying second, I thought, asterisk, what if I just disappeared? What if I laid here and never got up? Would anyone actually care? Asterisk, but something, deep down, buried under all the heartbreak and anger, wouldn't let me stay down. Maybe it was my dad's voice. Maybe my own stubbornness. I don't know. But I stood up, wiped my face, and walked back into the night. Cold, broken, but still alive. 2 days after that night behind the diner, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I'd been dodging scam calls and job rejections constantly, but something told me to pick it up. Hey, this Rob from Greenview Landscaping. You applied a couple weeks ago. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I stammered out a yeah, trying to sound normal, even though I hadn't spoken to anyone professionally in weeks. He told me one of his crew quit mid-job, and if I could be at a location by 8 a.m. the next morning, I'd have a trial spot. Just like that. I didn't even think. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I borrowed Darren's bike, half rust, half duct tape, and showed up early, nervous as hell. Rob was a big guy, late 40s, beard, sun-scorched skin, permanently squinting like he didn't quite trust you yet. But he shook my hand and put a shovel in it and said, let's see if you're worth feeding. The work was brutal. No sugarcoating it. We dug holes in frozen dirt, hauled bricks, cleared rotten tree stumps, and cleaned gutters higher than I was comfortable with. My hands blistered before noon. My back ached for days. But I didn't complain. For the first time in months, I felt purpose, even if it came with mud in my shoes and sweat running down my spine. Rob didn't say much that first day, but when we wrapped, he tossed me a sandwich and a bottle of water and said, did decent, newbie. Come back tomorrow. My hands shook as I sat down on a stone wall and opened that sandwich. Not because I was cold, but because for the first time since my mom kicked me out, someone gave me a chance. A real one. After I started working with Rob's crew, my days got busier, but my nights got heavier. I'd come home exhausted, hands wrapped in bandages, head pounding from the sun or the cold, depending on the weather, but I couldn't sleep. My body would be drained, but my mind? It wouldn't shut up. So I started writing. At first, it was just random thoughts, job stress, weird things the crew said, old memories of my dad. But then one night, I picked up an old notebook Darren had lying around and wrote, Dear Mom, I didn't plan it. It just spilled out of me like a wound breaking open. I told her everything I never had the guts to say to her face. How much she hurt me. How confused I felt. How I used to lie awake at night wondering if she missed me, regretted what she did, or even remembered my birthday that year. I wrote pages. I didn't hold back. But I didn't send any of it. I had a drawer where I started keeping them. Folded, messy letters titled only with dates. Something about getting the words out, reading them back to myself, made me feel like I hadn't been completely erased. Like even if she never cared, even if Kyle poisoned whatever love she had left for me, I still knew the truth. I still remembered who we used to be, before everything broke. Some nights I'd cry over those letters. Other times, I'd rip them up the moment I finished, like screaming into a pillow. But every letter was a piece of me taking shape again. Like I was rebuilding something inside me from the rubble she left behind. I didn't need answers from her. I just needed to remember who I was, before she let me believe I was nothing. It had been 4 months since the day she kicked me out, for painfully long months of silence, when out of nowhere, my phone buzzed late one night with a message from my mom. No hey, how are you? No apology. No check-in. Just this cold, clipped line. Asterisk, your little brother Danny misses you. Don't poison his mind. Asterisk at first, I honestly thought it was a mistake. Like maybe she meant to send that to someone else, or maybe even Kyle sent it from her phone just to mess with me. But when I reread it, and reread it again, something sharp twisted inside me. She really thought I was the problem. After everything, that I was the one poisoning minds? I hadn't seen Danny since the day I left, hadn't spoken a single word to him. Not because I didn't want to, but because she ghosted me, blocked my calls, erased me from our family group chat. And now, somehow, I was the one hurting him? I sank into the corner of Darren's garage and stared at that message until the screen dimmed. The knot in my chest exploded into this icy rage I hadn't felt since the night Kyle slammed the door in my face. She didn't text to reconcile. She didn't text because she missed me. She texted to control, to guilt me into staying quiet, staying invisible. I realized in that moment that I wasn't just thrown out. I was deleted, like I never existed in that house. She chose her new life, her perfect little family with Kyle, and my absence was part of the fantasy. I wasn't just out of the house, I was out of the story. And worst of all, my baby brother, the one person who would have fought for me if he could, probably thought I just walked away. That thought broke me in a way even she couldn't. Just when I thought I had a grip on everything, on the anger, the hurt, the silence, my dad's sister, Aunt Maria, messaged me on Facebook. I hadn't heard from her in over a year. We used to be close, but distance and grief got in the way after Dad passed. Her message was simple. Asterisk, are you okay? I saw your post. Asterisk, I had vented a bit online that day. Nothing specific, just a vague line about feeling invisible to the people who should love you the most. She picked up on that instantly. Within an hour, we were sitting across from each other in a little diner off Main Street with 2 mugs of coffee between us, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. She didn't tiptoe around anything. She just said, I'm going to tell you the truth, even if it hurts. I nodded because I was ready for it. She said Kyle had been whispering in my mom's ear from day one, feeding her a steady stream of poison disguised as tough love. That I was weak, that I was manipulating her grief to avoid growing up, that I reminded her too much of my dad, and it was keeping her stuck in the past. I sat there, stunned, my fork suspended over my food, too sick to eat. It all made so much sense now. Kyle hadn't just wanted me out. He wanted to erase my father, and I was the living reminder he couldn't stand. And my mother let him. She let him talk down the memory of the man who loved her. She let him exile her own son. Aunt Maria reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Your father would hate what she's become, she said. And in that moment, I realized something awful but true. She wasn't the same mom who raised me. That version of her died years ago. I couldn't get what Aunt Maria said out of my head for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my little brother Danny's face, confused, hurt, maybe even thinking I'd abandoned him. That tore at me more than anything else. He was only 10 when I was kicked out, still just a kid, still in that phase where older brothers are heroes. And I just vanished from his life without a goodbye. I kept wondering what story Kyle had fed him, that I left on purpose, that I didn't love them, that I was dangerous somehow. The thought made me sick, and I knew I couldn't just let him believe that. One afternoon, I got off work early and waited quietly outside the fence near Danny's school, hiding behind the side wall of a coffee shop where he wouldn't notice me right away. My heart was pounding in my chest. What if he didn't want to see me? What if he was afraid of me now? But the second he walked out in his hoodie and I softly called his name, Danny, he froze. His eyes snapped to mine like he wasn't sure I was real. And then, out of nowhere, he dropped his backpack and just ran into my arms. He was crying as he hugged me, and he kept saying over and over, I thought you died. I thought something bad happened. I swear, in that moment, I felt every wall I'd built inside me collapse. I held him so tight, I thought I'd crack his ribs. We talked for 10 minutes, just sitting on the curb, eating candy I brought him. He kept asking why I left, and all I could say was, it wasn't my choice, bud. I would never leave you. And I meant it. From the bottom of my heart. After seeing Danny, something inside me woke up, something I didn't even know was still there. A fire, maybe. A reason. I couldn't let that kid grow up thinking the world's just a place where the people you love disappear without warning. I wanted him to see that no matter how bad things got, you could survive it. You could make something out of the broken parts. So I doubled down. I worked longer hours with Rob's crew, even picked up weekend jobs no one wanted, gutting out attics, hauling debris in freezing rain, trimming trees so high my entire body shook by the time I climbed down. My fingers stayed blistered, and some days I came home so sore I couldn't lift my arms. But I didn't care. It was real. It was mine. Rob saw how hard I was pushing and started giving me side tasks, handling invoices, taking inventory, learning tool maintenance, and one day he said, you ever think about getting certified? Tree work pays more when you've got that paper. I didn't even think. I said, tell me what I have to do. That same week, I enrolled in a weekend arborist certification course. It wasn't cheap, but I used every saved dollar. At night, I'd crash on that same old recliner in Darren's garage, or sometimes on the floor just to stretch out, flipping through study guides by flashlight. It wasn't glamorous, not even close. But it felt like each thing I did was stacking bricks into the version of me I always wanted to be. The version I told my mom I could be, before she decided I wasn't worth the wait. I didn't want to prove her wrong anymore. That used to be the goal. Now, I just wanted to prove myself right. It had been over a year since I was kicked out, and by then, I'd carved out something that actually felt like a life. I was renting this tiny studio apartment. Not much more than a glorified closet, really, but it was mine. My name on the lease. My key in the door. I had tools I'd bought with my own money, a little secondhand coffee maker, and piece I'd built with my own 2 hands. And one rainy afternoon, just as I was finishing an estimate job, Aunt Maria called me again. Her voice sounded different, quieter, unsure. I thought you should know. Kyle lost his job about a month ago, she said. I didn't react at first. Just stood still while the rain tapped against my shoulder. Apparently he got caught in some kind of shady crypto deal, lost a chunk of their savings too. Things haven't been good over there. I stayed silent. Maria continued. Your mom's been drinking more, snapping at the neighbors. Even yelled at Danny in public the other day. He told me she's always tired, always angry. She's unraveling. The weirdest part? I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel righteous or smug like I thought I would when karma finally caught up with them. I just felt sad. I realized I had spent so long convincing myself they couldn't hurt me anymore, that I forgot part of me still wanted them to be okay, even if it was undeserved. But more than that, I felt clarity. They tried to bury me, cut me out of the picture like I was never part of the story. And now, the perfect little life they built on that lie, it was falling apart. Not because I left, but because of what they became after I was gone. And I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. For weeks, I kept thinking about sending her a letter. One real letter, not the ones I scribbled in my journal and tore up after reading. Something in me still needed closure, some final piece of the wreckage I could set on fire and walk away from without turning back. The day I decided to do it, I sat at my cracked little desk in the studio, sunlight slipping in through the dusty blinds, and I stared at a single blank page for what felt like hours. And then, without really planning it, I just started writing. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't pretty, but it was raw. I told her everything I'd held back, everything I screamed silently into the garage walls, everything I cried into my pillow after long days working in the cold. I wrote, you broke something in me the day you put my life in trash bags and left them in the rain. You didn't just push me out. You chose someone who always made me feel like less. You chose him. And then I wrote something even harder. But I forgive you. Not because I forget. Not because I'm okay with what you did. I forgive you because I'm no longer carrying the shame you shoveled onto me like dirt over a grave. That wasn't mine to hold. I told her about my job, about passing my certification, about renting my own place, about how Danny still means everything to me. I ended with this. I love you, but I don't need you anymore. I hope someday you find the version of yourself I used to look up to, but I won't wait around for her to come back. I'm moving forward, with or without you. I sealed the envelope, added no return address, and dropped it in a mailbox. She never wrote back. I never expected her to. It wasn't for her, anyway. It was for me. Life didn't magically become perfect after that letter, but the weight I'd been dragging around for over a year felt like it finally cracked loose and rolled off my chest. And in the space that was left behind, something better started to grow. Real connections, real people, real warmth. It started small. Rob started inviting me over for cookouts with his family. His wife would always pack extra food for me to take home, like she just instinctively knew I was still learning how to take care of myself. One of the other guys on the crew offered to give me rides to class when he found out I was still biking everywhere. Darren, despite all the chaos in his own life, never once made me feel like a burden and always made space for me, even if it meant less for him. And then, one random Thursday, I met Leah. She sat down across from me at a campus coffee shop and asked if I could watch her laptop while she used the restroom. When she came back, she smiled and thanked me, and we started talking. Light stuff, music, books, classes. I didn't tell her everything right away, but strangely, I didn't have to. Over time, I opened up. I told her how I grew up, what happened with my mom, what I was trying to rebuild. And she didn't judge, didn't look at me with pity. She just listened and asked the kind of questions that made me feel like I mattered. One night after I told her the whole story, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Damn, you're seriously still standing." I laughed, but yeah, I was. Somehow, after being thrown out and burned down, I was still here. Not just standing. Asterisk rising. Asterisk the family I thought I lost turned out to be the family I chose, brick by brick. On the morning of my 22nd birthday, I woke up to the smell of pancakes burning and someone arguing with the microwave, which could only mean one thing. Darren was trying to cook again. I rolled out of bed in my tiny studio, feet hitting the cold floor, and for a second, I just stood there, taking it all in. My place. My life. Not perfect, not fancy, but solid. Real. A knock came at the door, followed by the sound of Leah's laugh and her voice yelling, "You better not be decent because we're coming in anyway." I opened the door and in they came, Darren, Leah, two other close friends from class. Even Rob swung by later with a six-pack and one of those tiny tool-shaped keychains as a joke gift. We didn't throw a wild party or anything. Just music playing from someone's phone, plastic chairs around the too-small table, and the world's ugliest birthday cake that Darren frosted blindfolded for fun. His words, not mine. But it was the best birthday I'd had in years. No big speeches, no fake smiles, just pure love. We laughed, told stories, roasted each other, and at one point I looked around the room and realized I was surrounded by people who held me up through the worst. People who didn't give up on me. People I wasn't related to by blood, but felt more like family than the ones who were. And I didn't need a text from my mom. I didn't wait for one either. Not this time. She wasn't going to ruin this day. Not now, not ever again. As Darren lit the candles and everyone started singing, I closed my eyes and made a wish. But it wasn't for something new. It was simple. I just whispered, thank you. Because I'd survived. And more than that, I'd finally come alive.